everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I will be sharing all the Dawat prep I did, including recipes of finger fish, biryani, and Seekh Kebabs, as well as show you guys how to set up your table or island in an elegant, beautiful way. I'll be sharing my tips and tricks to make any Dawat go smoothly and for you to elevate your presentation skills, inshallah. As you guys know, I plan to make Seekh Kebab, biryani, and finger fish at home while ordering 2 Salon dishes by catering, so let's get started. The night before the Dawat, I decided to make the chicken marination for the chicken biryani. We were expecting to have 7 people in total for the Dawat, so I added about 2 pounds of chicken, or in pieces, I would say I used about 15 to 16 leg pieces. I only use thigh and drumsticks because that's just what my family likes. You can use a whole chicken if you like, or whatever pieces you prefer. I added about 3 medium tomatoes sliced thinly along with 2 tablespoons of ginger garlic paste, and then I added a handful of chopped cilantro and a half a lemon's juice. So I'm using the biryani masala from Shan. You can use the Bombay biryani masala if you like a spicier biryani. I added about the whole packet and just left a little bit at the end so that I can use it during garnishing, which I'll show you guys later. Then it was time to basically add the spices. So I added orange food coloring first, about 1 teaspoon, and I added the remaining spices that you see on the screen. So I will have all the written recipes in the description bar below, so definitely check that out if you guys want the recipes. Nowadays, I'm really liking this method of making biryani, like marinating it before the event, because it really makes it easier to make the biryani on the day of the actual event. You just add the marinated chicken mixture to fried onions and let it cook to make the korma. It honestly saves time, so I highly recommend if you're planning to make biryani like on the day of your party or dawat, try and marinate the chicken the night before, and it'll make the process smoother. Make sure to mix it very nicely so that everything is evenly incorporated. I like to leave this to marinate overnight so that the flavor gets fully absorbed. Next, I moved on to making the dough for naan. I took about 3.5 cups of flour, added 2 teaspoons of yeast and 2 teaspoons of salt. You can adjust the salt according to your preference and what your family likes. I'm using the yeast from Costco, by the way, and it is not instant yeast. I add very warm water, so that's one tip that I like to add. If you want soft, fluffy naan, I like to make the dough with very, very warm water. I added about 2 cups of water, but you should look at how the dough is coming along and add water slowly so that as you knead the dough, you get a soft consistency, and that way maybe the amount of water that you're using may be different than mine. So just adjust it accordingly. I kneaded it a few times before transferring it to like another bowl, and this is how soft the dough should be. As you guys can see, I transferred it into another bowl and then I put it in the fridge for overnight. The finger fish, I'm using these basa fillets that I bought from Walmart. They are frozen, so I took them out of the freezer and put it in the fridge overnight to defreeze. I'm using about 7 to 8 of these fish fillets, so I just put that in the fridge, and then the next morning I started with the Seekh Kebabs first. So I didn't make the mix for the Seekh Kebabs the night before because it uses onions, and onions will usually release water and make the kebabs too soft to form a nice shape. So I would recommend if you're making Seekh Kebabs, make the mixture fresh right before cooking. I used about 2 pounds of ground qeema, so I used qeema with about 80% fat. That helps it to be nice and juicy. Using 1 medium to large size onion, and I cut it into smaller pieces to fit my chopper here. I love this chopper. It's very handy and mashallah does the job super quickly. So I chopped it until it was this fine. A very important step to get nice kebabs is to make sure that you squeeze all the juice out of the onions before you add it to the qeema, like I've done here. Next, I added a handful of chopped cilantro, and then it was time to add the spices. This kebab recipe is actually super simple, and I like it because it's very beginner friendly. Anyone can make it. It uses spices that I'm sure can be found in all of our pantries. So just some black pepper, salt, garam masala, coriander, and crushed zeera. I added about 1 teaspoon of red chili powder, but you can adjust that according to your taste or preference. Next, I'm using the Seekh Kebab masala from the brand Handi. I really like this mix. It gives like a smoky barbecue flavor. I made this recipe with like the Shan Seekh Kebab masala too, and it tastes equally as good. So you can use any masala that you have readily available. I added about half the packet, and I added about 1 teaspoon of salt. So mix that nicely so that all the spices are well incorporated, and then it's time to add my secret ingredient, which is a big serving spoon of corn flour. I believe I added about 1.5 to 2 serving spoons of the corn flour, and I love this because it helps to make the kebab soft and hold its shape. Do a taste test just to check the salt, so make sure you do that, and then put the mixture in the fridge for about 30 minutes. I got my patila to make biryani on the side as well. I put my skewers in water so that they soak for about 10 to 15 minutes, and that helps it to not burn when you're cooking. Now after 30 minutes of being in the fridge, the keema is easier to handle and it has firmed up a bit. So take a handful of the keema according to how big you want the kebabs to be. I took about like the size of my palm, and then I slowly spread the mixture on the wooden skewer. So you can wet your hand with water before you start handling the keema, so that way it forms the shape easily. After I got it to like the desired length, I used my fingers to create the kebab ridges. So I made about 14 or 15 seekh kebabs out of this mixture. I added a few tablespoons of oil on the tawa, and once the oil was warm enough, I added the skewers to it. So on the side, I also started on my biryani korma as well. I added about one big onion sliced thinly into about a third cup of oil. So to prepare things on time, I wanted to multitask and work on both things side by side. So as the kebabs were frying, I was cooking biryani too, and that way it saved me time, because with kids, honestly, you just have to multitask. We kept the dawat on the weekend, so my husband was home and he was able to keep the kids busy while I quickly finished the cooking in the morning. But of course, in the case like, you know, kids came downstairs, I had a couple of activities ready for them on the counter, so that way they don't bother me too much, or like I had snacks ready for them to eat in the background. So if you have kids, I would advise that if you're preparing for a dawat or you're busy cooking, prep activities for them beforehand, so that way they don't, like, you wouldn't have to resort to TV or screen time to keep them busy. Yeah, mashallah, the kebabs were coming out very nice. Make sure to fry them on all four sides like how I showed you here. As the kebabs were frying, here I am frying the onion for my biryani. I had taken out my marinated chicken from the fridge and mixed it a little bit. Once the onion was golden brown, I added the chicken and I let that fry for about 10 to 15 minutes. And you guys, for me and my family, we love potatoes in our biryani, so I had to add that for sure. Let me know in the comments below if you guys are team potato or not team potato. I added about 4 to 5 small potatoes and I let that cook for 5 to 10 minutes before I added my yogurt mixture. With the yogurt, I took 1 cup of yogurt and added about 2 teaspoons of orange food color so that the korma will have like a nice look. I added the yogurt into the mixture and then I let that cook for about 25 to 30 minutes until my chicken was fully cooked and the potatoes were soft. And in the meanwhile, I did take out my rice and soaked it in water. So I am using falak sela rice and I'm making about 3.5 cups of biryani. I let the rice soak for as long as like the chicken is cooking. And now I'm finished frying the kebabs and the chicken biryani korma is cooking on the side. So now it's time to make our finger fish. My fish fillets had defreezed overnight and I took it out of the packaging. I cut the fish in half and then I cut each half into 3 strips, as you guys can see here. You can use 1 strip as a measurement to cut the rest if you want it to be like very precise and for all the pieces to look the same. I just roughly did it. I eyeballed it. Recipe is extremely delicious. Like, it makes restaurant style finger fish and it's super easy. I was actually surprised at how simple it is, to be honest. If you guys make this, do let me know in the comments below how it came out, and also remember me in your duas when everyone says, you know, like vah vah and compliments you after eating this. It's that good. But yeah, now it's time for the spices. I did 2 tablespoons of vinegar and 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of red chili powder. Now you can adjust the salt and red chili pepper according to your taste and preference. Depends on your fish as well. Some fish are super salty from beforehand, and I found that 1 teaspoon was enough for this. I'm using Lahori fish masala by Shan, and I added about 2.5 tablespoons of the masala. Restaurant style look, I added 2 teaspoons of orange food color, and I found that this makes it look so nice and appealing. Mix that really nicely together, and then we add 2 more ingredients. You've mixed everything. You add 1 serving spoon of maida, and you add 1 serving spoon of cornstarch or corn flour, whatever you have readily available. That's basically everything you need to coat the fish. You mix that very nicely to make sure that every single piece is coated with the cornstarch and maida, and it's going to look something like this. This part of the recipe requires breadcrumbs, so I'm using this brand, panko breadcrumbs. You can use whichever you like. The key is to grind the breadcrumbs into this fine mixture, and that's how you're going to get that restaurant style look. So I used about 2 cups of breadcrumbs and I grinded it into into this fine mixture right here. And then it was time to heat up my oil. I was heating the oil up at like medium heat and waiting for it to heat up just enough. You don't want it to be extremely hot oil because then the fish might be raw inside. Made sure to coat the fish in the breadcrumbs one by one. So I kind of put like a few pieces in the bowl at a time, and then I would toss it in the breadcrumbs to make sure that they're all coated nice and evenly. And then before tossing it into the oil, I'd like to dust off the excess breadcrumbs. It's time to fry the fish, but make sure to keep an eye on your biryani masala at the same time and mix it. After I finished frying the fish, this is the final look. It looked beautiful. It was soft and tender on the inside, and it tasted really, really yummy. So I actually transferred the fish to this aluminum foil tray just because it would make it easier for me to heat it up before serving. I didn't want to warm it up in the microwave because that would make it too soft and mushy. Moving on, it's time to boil the rice. Got a big pot of water and added the following spices. So 2 tablespoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of zeera, 1 star anise, 1 piece of javitri, 1 cinnamon stick, and 3 to 4 cloves, and 5 to 6 black peppers. Depending on the type of rice you're using, boil it accordingly. So I boiled the rice for about 8 to 10 minutes until the rice was almost fully cooked. So I left about 1/3 of it to be cooked during them. And then it was time to basically layer the biryani. So I took out all of my korma from the pot and I made 1 layer of the rice. I actually made sure to remove like the whole masalas, like the javitri and the cinnamon stick. I just don't like it when it comes to the mouth while you're eating. And then I added all of the chicken korma masala, and then I added a handful of chopped cilantro on top, and then finally the last layer of rice. Final touch definitely had to be the food coloring, so I sprinkled on some yellow food coloring and some orange food coloring, and then I added the remaining masala that I had saved from the packet just on top. And then finally it was time to put the biryani for dum. Covered it with aluminum foil just so that the steam can remain inside, and then I put it in the oven at 380 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes. Now that I finished cooking, it's time to clean this mess. And alhamdulillah, look at that beautiful clean kitchen. No matter what, if I have people coming over, I have to make sure that my kitchen is clean because that will be, you know, like the main focus point of your dawat, and that makes sure that your dawat looks well put together and organized. I also like to keep my counters empty without any pots or pans because that just gives a messy look. Now it's time to set up my island with my serving dishes. So I like to do this before my guests arrive so that way I know exactly what I'll be serving each dish in and where I want things to be located. It's always nice to add like some decor elements like a leaf vine, which I'm using here, or you can use like a flower vine or individual small vases with small flowers between the dishes. You could also use like baby's breath, which is a kind of flower that looks really nice around a table. Next, I added my serving dishes for each item. So I like to use different heights for my dishes. I find that it gives everything a more elegant touch. I have this beautiful riser here, which I wanted to use for my salad bowl and my naan. And it just looks so pretty, and I love how everything has like a touch of gold in it. That way it looks more cohesive, it goes along very well. I also like to use like wooden elements. For example, I have that wooden board which I want to use for the Seekh Kebabs. Even my risers have a little bit of a wooden touch to it, and I find that touches of wood here and there, it goes very nicely with gold. Since I'll be using like gold cutlery as well, I wanted it to match and look more cohesive. This is for cutlery. And then rice, biryani, we have chicken korma, we have goat korma, I believe, or goat curry. This is for decoration, and this is for Seekh Kebab. This is for the fish that I made, and then we have for chutney, last plate salad is for naan. And you guys remember these candles that I bought off of Temu, and these were just so beautiful. I couldn't wait to use them, and I decided to use them for my dawat. So I always like to add like a touch of, you know, like candles to my dawat presentation as well. Last time I did a dawat, I actually used like these vases, and I I filled them with water, and I would put floating candles in them. So that looked really nice and elegant. This time I wanted to use these battery operated candles because I thought they were just so beautiful and they went along very nicely with everything. So I used all of these. It came as a pack of 8, I believe. See that I tried to use different levels for the candles as well. I put some of the candles on the riser and it just looked so beautiful. Some were like high and low and it looked really nice. Then I added my cutlery as well. So my serving spoons, everything was gold. So I just added those to the plates beforehand, or the serving dishes beforehand, and I loved the way it came together and everything looked really nice, mashallah. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you guys like such, decorating and table setting and like, dawat videos, because this is something that I truly enjoy, like setting up, my serving dishes for dawats and just making everything look, pretty, the presentation and stuff. So definitely let me know if you guys like that, and I will work on more content for you. Here I turned on my bukhur so that the house smells amazing, because I cooked all that food and I didn't want, that smell to be the first thing that my guests basically smell when they enter the house. My husband had bought the salan from the catering place, so I put everything in the oven. Once my family arrived, my mom was helping me in the kitchen and she wanted to make the naan. So she basically rolled out the dough into the naan, shapes. The way she cooks it is she adds a little bit of oil to the tawa and then she cooks the naan on medium heat. So once she adds the naan, she pokes holes to prevent big bubbles from like forming. And once the naan is cooked on the bottom, she transfers the naan to the oven where we cook it on broil for about 2 to 3 minutes, or until you see color forming on the naan, and voila, your naan is done. On the side, I was just getting salad ready. I cut everything and then I added salt, black pepper, and a little bit of lemon, and it was ready. So you can have these things cut beforehand and prep beforehand, but since it was my family that was coming over, I knew that they would, help me out with everything, and I wasn't so concerned with having everything done beforehand. So the salad, chutney, and the naan I left till after they arrived, so that way it was fresh. I made a basic chutney. I added cilantro, mint, yogurt, salt, and black pepper, and I blended that together. And then after I added that to my bowl, I added some yogurt to it, and voila, your chutney is ready. These 3 things were prepared. I wanted to warm up the rest of the food. So instead of warming each dish one by one in the microwave, it's better if you warm up everything together in the oven. So for aluminum foil trays, if you're ordering from catering, make sure to remove this plastic that's on the tray because that will melt into your food. I put each of the trays into the oven along with my patila of biryani. That way everything warmed up together. Moving on, I mixed the biryani and this is how it looked. Mashallah, it came out super yummy and super delicious. And then now it was finally time to serve. So for the Seekh Kebab, I actually warmed those up in the microwave because I thought it would just be easier. Everything else was getting warmed up in the oven, and then I warmed this up in the microwave. They were nice and juicy. You guys have to try this recipe and let me know how it turns out for you, because my family absolutely loved this item, and mashallah, it was completely finished by the end of the night. Another tip that I would give you guys for like preparation for dawats is have like your garnishing cut beforehand. I actually had cilantro chopped up and cut beforehand, and I put it in a little container for myself. I also peeled some onion and cut it into those rings beforehand. So when it came time to serving, all I had to do was open my little container and basically garnish all the dishes with cilantro, like you'll see me doing here. I put cilantro on top of both of the salans, and then I added the onions to the Seekh Kebabs, and basically it just made it faster instead of me having to go and chop up cilantro right now. I poured both the salans into the serving dishes, and then for the fish, I had actually taken off the aluminum foil from the top and I put it into the oven, so they warmed up in the oven as well. And that was the main reason why I put it in the aluminum tray, because the warming up would be easier for me. And once that was nice and warm, I transferred it into the serving plate. I actually got a pretty helpful advice from one of my subscribers that said to use like those warmers underneath your dishes. In this specific case, because I'm using the serving platters that I'm using, I can't really have warmers underneath it. So I actually used the oven to my advantage and made sure that I warmed up everything together in the oven. Here I'm adding the final dish to the island, which is the biryani, and now it's time for the final look. alhamdulillah, the dawat was a success and everyone loved the food that I made and everyone loved my presentation and the decoration that was up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Do let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Inshallah, I will see you guys in my next video. I am starting a new series and it's a travel series, so stay tuned for that. Inshallah, I'll meet you guys in my next video. Take care and Allah Hafiz.